this meeting to order at 7 p.m. on October 28th. Thank you everyone for being here. Because we are virtual, I'm going to do a roll call, and if you could just say aye or present when I call your name. Jane Gates.
Present.
Naya Yazdani.
Present.
Nicole Bolos.
Present.
Kate Heisner, present. We're calling the meeting to order at 7:01. Great. So Rajani can't join tonight. I don't know if you all saw her her email. She had something urgent come up. So we don't technically have quorum, but I think that's okay to move through the agenda items because we're technically not voting on anything. So the one item that we would need sort of a majority would be the approval of the September meeting minutes. And we'll just go ahead and hold those, and we'll do the approval at the November meeting for both the September and the October meeting minutes when we can actually have a quorum. So we'll go. I hope everyone was able to get the meeting materials. I circulated a couple things last week for everyone's review. We have a couple of sort of chunkier, more substantive items to move through in the actual discussion portion of the meeting. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just give a really quick chair report. And I'll also just read through the comments that Rajani had about the current funds that we've allocated so far and what we still need to spend out this year. So on my end, I really just wanted to thank and welcome Naya, who is our newest committee member. Naya is joining us as a Southborough resident. She has incredible experience that really spans a variety of different organizations in town. And I've personally been really impressed with the acumen and sort of the visibility she has broadly into what Southborough is, who the community members are, what they care about. So Naya, I want to just thank you for doing this. We're really thrilled to have you. And I don't know if there's anything you'd like to share with Jane and Nicole, just as you get started on the committee.
So I graduated in 24, so very freshly out of high school. So it's still one of those getting used to the, I guess, adult world, but also I still have that aspect of being able to remember being in middle school and high school and all of those things, so I can speak for the kids that are still there as well. So yeah, that's all I got. But
well, I think I can remember you from being in Mr. Wallach's room.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are. And, I think it's really, really incredible to have different backgrounds, different experience, different ages, different perspectives on this committee. Because when I joined a year or two ago, one of the key data points that we received when we circulated a community survey, which is something we do every couple of years, is that broader representation was sought from the Southborough residents that responded. So there was an interest in having more youth-focused programs, more programs focused for our senior residents. So we're just absolutely thrilled to be growing the committee in this way. So with that, let me just move over. I want to read Rajani's comments about the grantees. So from the Treasury report, so she also did a really great job and did our financial packet and worked with Carla in town to get that submitted to the Mass Cultural Council. So I just want to acknowledge Rajani's work there. And according to her notes, we have reimbursed 7 grants so far. I think did we have 10 or 11 last year? So we're rounding the corner. We have just a couple more that we need to get out for the year. And Naya, I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but just for your awareness, the way the grant cycle works is that grantees have 12 months to spend the funds, and we are a reimbursement grant process, meaning they submit their their expenses for reimbursement, and we pay them out. So they would have received the award from us end of December, beginning of January. They have until the end of this calendar year, December 31st, to actually give us their reimbursement request. So we'll likely see a couple more trickle in toward the end of the year. And any funds that, if for whatever the reason the grantee doesn't spend the money or isn't able to spend the money in that 12-month period, we would have them just, if they'd like to still use it, let us know and we can potentially accommodate or provide an extension, or we would use those funds for the next grant cycle. So it sounds like per Rajani's note, we have 2 more reimbursement forms that have been submitted and are for review, which is great. So we have currently for the LCC grant cycle reimbursed about $3,400 of the $6,400. So it sounds like some of the larger projects still haven't submitted for reimbursement. And we have encumbered about $2,900 for those remaining grants. And then for our FY26 grant cycle, we have about $10,400 allocated. Remember, $6,400 of that is for the LCC grants that we're going to be voting on next month. And then the remaining amount is from our budget that we submitted to town for the new grant opportunity that we'll add to our portfolio. So we can talk a little bit about that. Okay, let me shift back over. So for discussion tonight, we have 4 things, and because we're virtual, I'll just rattle them off and then we can maybe pick one to start with. So recognition of former committee members at the spring reception, a committee secretary appointment, voting. I guess we won't vote, but we'll discuss it. Discuss the criteria for the second grant opportunity for FY26. And then we'll do an initial review of this year's applicants and the grant criteria there. I think those last 2, the second grant opportunity for FY26 and the LCC grant review, will probably take the majority of time. Is there anything else that Nicole, you or Jane might want to add to this based on our last meeting in September? Or is that pretty?
No, that's good.
Okay. So we recently, over the last 2 years, have had 3 people rotate off of the committee that have done a lot of work for the Cultural Arts Council. And I would also emphasize, for town broadly through their volunteerism. That includes Catherine Weber, Jen Hansen, who was chair when I termed onto the committee a couple of years ago, and then also Liz Kesselman, Catherine Weber, and Jen Hansen. Those are the 3 I'm thinking of. And I wanted to take the committee's temperature on potentially recognizing those folks at the grant reception that we host in the spring, celebrating the grantees. I was trying to think of a way to formally thank them for their volunteerism, and that seemed to be sort of the most appropriate context, but wanted to just get the temperature from everyone about how you feel about that. Do you think it's a good idea? Should we do something else?
I think it's a nice idea to honor them. I just worry that if we do it at the end of the year, like, is that too long of a way to honor them? Or I know it's nice to have everybody together because it'll be the reception. But maybe we can have the town ask the town if they'll like write a letter, on town letterhead, and at least get that to them earlier so they have something, official ahead of time, and then have them come to the ceremony.
I like the idea.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me that a lot of these folks, volunteer their time and then they sort of turn off silently.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And, there's no moment to really thank them. So, I'd like to do that if we can. So if you all are open to it, then I'm happy to kind of operationalize that in whatever way.
Mhm.
I can reach out to someone at town and see sort of, what the process would be for a letter, but we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, the second bullet is a committee secretary appointment. So this is something for everyone to think about. No one needs to commit tonight. Liz Kesselman filled the role of secretary on this committee. So what that entailed was keeping track of our meeting minutes, getting the meetings scheduled and set, and then following up with the committee to set the agenda for the next meeting. So those were that's the basic sort of set of responsibilities. So since she has termed off, we haven't backfilled that post. We don't technically need to operate as a committee, but if somebody is interested and would like to step into that role, please let me know and we can formalize that. I don't want to put anyone on the spot tonight. It's the first time we're talking about it, so I'll put the request out there. You all can think about it, and then we can follow up next meeting. And if anyone would like to do it between now and then, you can just let me know. Or unless anyone's jumping to do it right now.
I don't think anybody's right now, but we'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about it. It's the only thing with virtual is that it's hard to get people's read when you ask questions like that. So, all right, moving on through here. Now, let's talk about. So we're going to just shift the order. We had voting on criteria for second grant opportunity for FY26. Let's do that last. Let's talk about the grants that we received. Was everyone able to log into the website and see the panel book, or was I sending the panel book the first time you saw the applicants together?
I opened up the attachment you sent and
Okay.
read through everybody.
Okay. Jane, were you able to access it? Yeah.
What was that last question?
Were you able to access the panel book and view all the applicants?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And
I
then
printed 'em.
Naya, were you able to access the panel book?
I did, but briefly, and I didn't get to most of them, unfortunately.
That's fine. But you could open the document,
Yes.
right? Okay. And then we'll make sure, I'll follow up with you offline to make sure you have access to the website as well. I think that, I don't know if you would have automatically received a link from town, did you, or no?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
Okay. I'll check offline too. I want to make sure you're set up there. Okay. So, any initial thoughts on what we've received?
There were a couple that I had a question about, but the others I liked because they were repeat applicants.
Yeah. Yes.
So I felt that was good, like that even though might be doing something different this year, that they came back again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just opening it here.
I'm not too clear on what the Southborough Library 3 times is. In the
Southborough,
list of primary applicant names.
I think they only applied for one grant.
And under Southborough Gardeners, and then Southborough Library, and Roger Ticknell. Ticknell.
Last year's panel, Jane.
I'm sorry?
Oh, you mean on the spreadsheet?
Yes, on the spreadsheet.
Yeah. Okay, let me pull, I'm gonna share my screen just so we're all looking at the same thing. Um,
That was from last year.
Oh,
can you read this or can you view this?
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So we received 25 applicants this year. In total, the amount requested, let's see, do we have that? I can't see the total amount requested. It obviously far exceeds,
Yeah. Oh,
what
yeah.
we can actually allocate. But that's okay. So I do see some repeat applicants, which is great, per Nicole's point. So one of the things that this, I guess, is just an FYI to the committee, but one thing that I'm going to ask we all do is over the next week, just do a cursory review of the grants. You don't have to do the deep evaluation at this point. But if there are any questions that you have about the grant, whether it's like legitimacy, something that doesn't feel right about the application, call it out now. And I think I would like to actually follow up with grantees before we review at the November meeting. Because last year there were a few where we found out as we were doing the review that, one of them had applied to the wrong town. Another person had actually not pre-selected, didn't have, the contract in place for the venue. Those like little things that we can kind of preempt, I think would be helpful. So there were two in this packet. I'm not going to call them out right now, but there were two where it looked like one had accidentally applied to us instead of a different cultural arts council just by the verbiage.
I think that
And
was
then
my question.
yeah. And then there was a second applicant where they don't have the partnership agreement with the venue.
Hmm.
And again, that's not insurmountable. It's okay. Last year we had two applicants that did that. One of them we sort of guided to a new venue. And then the other one I spoke with and they ended up not applying. And it was sort of an error situation. So it would be super helpful if everyone could just take a look over the next week when you have some downtime, not to do the deep review, but just to also call out anything like that. And if you could just shoot me an email, and I'll include that in my follow-up. I'll plan to do follow-up the second week of November.
Yeah, I think there's
Um,
three. I have questions on. I can email you about.
okay,
Oh, don't worry about that.
great. Um, so let's take a look. So we're good on the grant applicants. Everyone has the packet. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do in the review process. Let me pull up our criteria. So last year, following the survey that we circulated and discussion that we had in committee, we established not necessarily all new, but refreshed funding priorities. So what this means is, and this is I'm just going through this in part because we have new folks joining us, but also a refresher for each of us, that we have 5 categories that we're essentially evaluating against. We want to make sure that we're funding programs that are held in Southborough and the surrounding communities. The evaluation criteria here explains what that means. And then the qualities of a strong application over here on the right helps us differentiate between applicants that are, what differentiates a really strong application from maybe a weaker application. So the funding priorities to be held in Southborough, funding for individuals and organizations from Southborough, funding for service organizations that benefit the town of Southborough, funding for programs that focus on the natural world and environment, and then those that serve the largest possible number of people in the community. So within that too, I should also emphasize, this is under the umbrella of cultural arts, right? So all of the applications need to address how they're elevating cultural arts. But then, once you get past that initial sort of qualification, these are the things we're looking for the program. So does anyone have any thoughts there, feedback, things that you think we should maybe be more thoughtful about in this review cycle as it relates to the grant criteria?
No, I think everybody, aside from the ones I have questions on, everyone else kind of fit these parameters.
Mhm.
So for me, it was hard to try to narrow things down. There were a few, like definitely some that stood out. Just being new, different, and serving a very niche population, which I liked. But I thought everybody kind of stuck to what we were looking for.
Okay. From you, Jane?
Really felt that it was a little bumpy at a few points when we were working this all out, but I think it's pretty cleared up, pretty clear now. And when we applied it, it was self-explanatory.
And I did make sure before we opened the fiscal year that the priorities and the criteria were really clearly included
Yeah, well,
on
we had a
application.
few bumps there,
And we
but
also made sure that it's stated that if a grantee is doing a performance or anything that involves a venue, that they include the partnership, that's a valid partnership. In other words, they're not just saying they're doing it at the library and they haven't talked to the library kind of thing.
Mhm.
yes.
All right, so let me just pull up one more document. See, can you see this still? Am I still sharing my screen?
Yep.
Yes. All right, so we do have we used this last year. I don't know how helpful it was, so I wanted to pull it up. But we had a spreadsheet where we actually placed all of the applicants, and you do not have to do this individually. We will do the spreadsheet when we actually go through the grants in November. But we're able to actually score 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, how well the grantee hits the funding priority. So this is good to kind of filter down to like the top, what I would say is like the top 10 or whatever we end up funding. And then from there, we kind of have to talk about it a little bit more. So was this helpful last year? Is this something that you used in your prep work for the grant review? Or is it something you think we should just use when we're doing the meeting together?
I didn't use it during my prep work. I just used the other one you sent, that had the list of everybody with the descriptions. And I printed out the main pages with like their request amount and had my notes by the names. So for me, that spreadsheet would be good when we're actually doing the review.
That's helpful. Then that's how we'll use it. So I part of the reason why I'm asking is I want to make sure that if the committee members need anything for the review, that we edit it and get it to you
Mhm.
in advance. But if you're not going to use this during the note-taking part or whatever, then we'll just have it ready for the November meeting. Great. Okay. Let's see. Sharing. So Nicole and Jean last year was your first year on the council. Do you have any advice or input that you'd like to share with our new council member as we begin the review process, things that maybe you wish that you had known going into it, anything like that?
I think last year at the beginning, I felt a little overwhelmed and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to review all these things and I need to know everything about it. But as we got to the meeting when we were going through each one, um, it was a lot more seamless and it had more natural conversation. And it made the process easier rather than, me being on my own and going through everything because I wasn't sure what exactly I was looking for. But then when I got to talk with everybody and get, feedback and opinions and, just shooting our thoughts around, that to me was helpful. And I was like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. But when you get the paperwork at first, you're like, whoa, what am I doing? But
It's a
having
lot.
the rubric too, and I was like, okay, now I can like narrow my thoughts. And I for me, I personally kept it like very Southborough focused at first, and then thought, how can I broaden my horizons on that?
I will second you on that, Nicole. When I first came in, I was feeling like, oh my God, I really don't
Yeah.
understand any of this. And it was really nice having other people there who had done this a lot.
Mhm.
And it was like, what do you mean they're leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah. The only additional thing I would add to that is, I think a lot of times I think a lot of times when we're looking at these grant applications, sometimes it's hard to differentiate what makes a grant fundable versus what makes a grant
Mhm.
maybe super fundable, right? And what I mean by that is basically most of the grants we're looking at, we want to fund. That's the reality.
Mhm.
The unfortunate part is that we're not able to fund all of them. And so what I would say is when you're looking through all of the materials, don't worry about making that decision. Just focus on using the criteria to say, does this fit this? How well is it articulated? And then to Nicole's point, when we discuss together, we're able to kind of flesh that out because that's a really difficult sort of space to be in. I always get stuck there. I'm like, well, should we fund this? Should we not? But ultimately, that's not the role of us as individuals. That's the role of us as the committee together. So hopefully that removes like a layer of pressure,
Yeah.
when you're reviewing. So our goal is really to make sure that as many people as possible have access to good funding to do creative projects, and we do our best to get those resources to them. And if we're not able to do that, then we very gently and kindly communicate it. And then in some cases we try and redirect or find resources elsewhere for those folks. Naya, do you have any questions as we sort of go through this?
Not at the moment, no.
No. Okay. So I'll just wrap this action item, then we'll talk. I'll just, for the sake of, for the good of the group, I'll just say, so the goal is, to have the grants reviewed by our November meeting.
Mhm.
We will schedule a little additional time for the November meeting to enable us to go through everything. If for whatever reason there's something that happens at that meeting and we're not able to make a decision, this happened last year. We had to call a special meeting in December to finalize everything because we do have to let the grantees know by the end of the calendar year or by January 1, I think, where they stand. So we'll try and get up as much as we can done at the November meeting, make decisions, and then issue those letters in December. So that's our timeline that we're working with.
And what's our grant budget again this year?
6,400 for the LCC grant applications. Now, remember, we do not grant, and this is state mandate, we do not issue grants of below $250. So the minimum that we can issue is 250. Where we're going as a committee discussed, and we don't need to do this year, but as we build out the grant portfolio, we'll want to think about the size of the grants. So in other words, do we want to focus on in the LCC grants, giving as much resources as we can to as many projects as we can, and then with our additional grant opportunity, use that as the larger funding mode. So we'll, maybe only fund one or two projects, but it's a higher amount. So, those are decisions that we need to make. But for the purpose of the LCC cycle, just everyone note, as you're looking through the packet, that we aren't able, anyone that we issue an award to, it needs to be 250 or greater. So. All right. Well, hope everyone's excited. Okay. Now, the last discussion item for today is related to something that we talked about in our last meeting. So just to provide a little bit of context, we received additional funding. We submitted a budget to a town meeting that was approved. The majority of that budget is around $4,000, is earmarked for an additional grant opportunity. The goal is that we have multiple grant opportunities throughout the year to fund artistic and creative projects in the town of Southborough. The LCC grant money that comes from the state appropriations budget, and that's what we're making decisions on in November. What we need to decide as a committee is what and when do we want to do the next grant opportunity with our town issued funds. So we spent a little bit of time talking about this at our last committee meeting, and I just wanted to check in, Jane and Nicole, I suppose this is more directed at you two. If you'd had any further thoughts from that discussion, and if there was anything you wanted to raise about that tonight.
No, I mean, I would like to see what we can give, like the grants now, and then I would really like something like, I know I brought up last time, but community-wide. If we could, can we do that? Like, I mean, do something within the community.
Yes.
With our funds.
Yes, we can do that.
Because I think it would really be nice, given that, we've got the centennial coming up. We've got a little, a little extra to do something with. It would be nice to bring the town together for something, even if it's just something they come and see, because we've put it out there. And I know Jane was talking a little bit about it too, wanting to do something in the town.
I still have that. It's been extremely frustrating because anybody who volunteers suddenly gets busy. And that's not really used to this pace, I guess, too much time over in the West Coast. And I think that all comes from the change of seasons. As soon as you finish one season, you're closing out everything that has to get done at the last minute before the next season hits, and with its list of to-dos. And then, suddenly you're in a rush to get that started again. And then it's the end of anyway, especially when you have kids involved. And I would like to do this. I did have some great talks, or at least I thought, with Chelsea. And now she's recently come up and said, I really want to do this with you. I really want to do this. We can have something, maybe we can get the kids together. We figure out the materials we're going to use, but I'm going to have to put it off until January because she doesn't have any time. So I suppose I get very impatient, but
So,
still
you know,
working.
yeah, so I think, if I'm hearing the group correctly, we're still in favor of moving forward on this. I think
Mhm.
where it sounds like the ambiguity is that we haven't drafted anything. And so I think what I can do is put a suggested prompt together for the grant opportunity for the committee to react to. I'm going to use a couple of just national examples of things like this, where the objective really is to catalyze community engagement in the arts. So, generally speaking, the opportunities like this one, the prompts should be pretty broad, and have a few different things that the applicants need to hit and a few different deliverables. So if we're using the mailbox example, Nicole, it would be, or not mailbox, what was it? The street boxes or,
The electrical boxes.
Well, there
yeah,
were electrical boxes and
yeah,
yeah, and there are that was one thing that I have not followed up with yet. But the other one was the one of doing something at the park where you have either a sign or, we were going to construct something to have a welcome sign done by kids who are in school.
right. I do want to be careful. So the committee is not doing the project.
Understood.
We are funding the project. You can apply to the committee for funding to do it, but I just do want to make that distinction. Anyone on the committee can apply and get funding to do it, but we as a committee are not taking on the work. We're funding the project.
Understood.
Yeah. So
But the project has to get off the ground and I can't do it alone. So I'm working on it.
yeah. So, the suggested prompt would be using the mailbox or the utility boxes as an example, would be something like, um, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 available to projects that support beatification of the downtown area of Southborough, and have, documentation of approval of the project, with the town of Southborough needs to hit XYZ objectives, something to that effect. And then we would put the opportunity out there and see what applications we get back to make the decision around funding. That's kind of the gist of it. I'm being overly vague right now because I need to put some language around it, but how does that feel as a
That
next
would be
step? Just
helpful.
getting it
That
on
would-
paper and then you all can react to it and then we can make a decision before the end of the year. That way, when this grant cycle concludes, we can actually put that one out.
Mhm.
Does that work?
I
Yeah.
like it. I think that helps. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially since I'm just trying to put things together to get people who are interested enough to do that before I can figure out how much money it's going to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, building consensus, Jane, it takes time, and I know you're spending a lot of time doing this, so just be gentle on yourself. Be gentle on yourself.
It's
Okay, so I think that's it in terms of the formal agenda. We have time set aside in November. The meeting will be virtual because in part, we actually received comments back from grant applicants last year that it was helpful to watch the recording of our review because there were some projects that weren't funded and that the applicants were wondering why, and they went back and viewed the discussion and it was helpful for them. So we know it's tough for folks to get to meetings during the week, so we'll do the next one virtual too. Look for those details. But that will be the one agenda item on this November agenda. It'll just be, grant review, unless there are any items you all would like to make sure we cover in November.
all right.
No, good.
I just wondered when we do these online, does it mean we should be there knowing we're not going to start for another half hour, or that we are going to actually start at the date, at the time that's listed?
So know that it starts at the time of our meeting, which is 7 PM. IT will always send you the calendar invite starting a half an hour before. They
Okay.
do that to allow time for the members that are running the meeting to get set up, to test their sound, to work out any kinks and whatnot. So yes, next time the same thing will happen. You will get an invitation. It'll be for about a half hour before our start time. So you do not need to log in at that time. But that's the time where we all can kind of get organized to start the meeting, because it takes a few minutes usually to get set up on Zoom.
Great. And would there be two of them like we had this time? Is that, there were two notifications and one that said that the meeting starts at 7? Is that?
Oh, that I don't know. That I don't know.
You can use
That
any of the
it
links
depends.
you get. Yeah, any of the emails you get, you can use the link in it
Yeah.
and just come on at 7.
Yeah. Well, great. Anything else for the good of the group?
Let's just review. Our next meeting is the 18th, November 18th. Is that right?
Let me double check. Yes, November 18th.
Okay.
And I would plan, so it's scheduled right now for 7 to 8, but because it's the grant review, I anticipate it going longer.
Hmm.
I think last year we were able to cover everything in an hour and a half, but I would block it for 2 hours.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Well, with that, we will adjourn at 7:42 PM.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great month.
Oh, happy Halloween.
Oh,
Fun
yeah.
trick or treating.
Halloween.
Take
All
care.
right.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.